Namaskara to all of you, and welcome to our next session on the yogic life. So we were, you know, we've been talking about the yogic life, and so the most important thing in yogic life is the willingness to accept and to change and to embrace change, right? To change for the better. So change is actually a very difficult thing for all of us, right? So we are used to a particular thing, and to change from that, it's very difficult, because it's not that we've been doing that for one day or 2 days. We've been doing it for a pretty long time, right? So the change for better is what we have to embrace. So when you find something which is which is much better than what we have been doing all these years, then we have to accept it, embrace it, and then run with it. So we are all born imperfect. We are born into families who have their own imperfections, who do not know everything about this world. So we are brought up in an environment of imperfection, by definition, without exception, right? So some way or the other, even though somebody might say, no, my family is perfect, but even then there may be some imperfections here and there, right? Which we are not aware of, which we have been thinking is perfect. So when we come in contact with something which is beautiful, and then no matter what the age is, we should be ready and willing to accept and embrace it, and forget about what we have been doing up until then, right? So because what we've been doing up until then is very, very comfortable, right? It is our life. We know what it is. It's a known path. And if somebody is 20 years, they've been doing it for 20 years. And if somebody is like 30 years, they've been doing it for 30 years. Somebody is 50 years, they've been doing it for 50 years. If somebody is 70 years, then they've been doing it for 70 years, like that. So the more age one accumulates, the more difficult it becomes to change. One becomes very accustomed more and more to the way one has been living. And right, but what we have to remember is that this is not what for which we have been born, right? We were born to move on the path from imperfection to perfection. That is what it is to lead a human life. Because we talked about what is the essence of human dharma. We talked about what is manava dharma. Manava dharma is the inner yearning for the infinite. So infinite means perfection. So since we haven't reached that state, in that sense, all of us are imperfect, because we haven't reached that infinite. So in that sense, all of us have been leading imperfect lives. So the infinite is perfect. It doesn't have any imperfections. So where are the human beings? Where are the living beings? They're all moving in that direction. They're all moving in the direction from imperfection to perfection. So, but we don't know we are moving, but we are all moving in some form or fashion. We are all moving towards that infinite. So we do have that gati, right? Either we are moving towards it or we are moving far away from it, but we are just moving in that direction, right? So we have the opportunity to know where we have come from and where we are going, and we have to grab that opportunity, right? So most of us have been living lives with our eyes closed, right? And we're talking about the inner eyes. The inner vision is closed, and we've been following the animal life for ages, and it's a known path, and it's very easy because it's a known path. So the path of satisfying one's sense organs, that is what we are all accustomed to doing, always constantly satisfying a sense organ. But now we have an opportunity to do something better, right? So we have to grab that opportunity, something which is better than what we have been doing. So what we've been thinking was so great, right? It was actually like the sense pleasures, they come and they go, right? And then the next thing comes, and then the next thing finishes. So it's constantly we are in touch with the sense objects, and something comes, something goes, something comes, something goes. So there's something which is, but what we have to realize is something which is much, much, much better than that, and that is the path of bliss. That is the path of ananda. So we are here to experience that Satchit Ananda, that bliss, the infinite bliss. And that is not Sukham. That is not Sukham. Sukham is what you get from the sense objects, right? The Sukham, Dukkham is all coming from the objects of the world. But what we are looking for is the Satchit Ananda, the infinite bliss. but in order to move in that direction, we have to establish ourselves on the path of dharma. So far we have talked about 4 things which are very, very important for us in this path. One is proper food. Second one is nirjala upvasa. The third is asanas, and then the fourth is vyayama, exercise. Satvika ahara, nirjala upvasa, asanas, and exercise. 4 things are very, very important to move in this direction. So all these 4 things are very much essential because they create a platform on which sadhana, the adhyatmic sadhana, the spiritual sadhana, meditation can thrive. So focusing the mind on the infinite is not an easy thing, right? But it can become easy if we have a proper environment for the mind. So that means, what does it mean? It means the mind needs training, the body needs training, and these 4 things that we talked about, food, nirjalopvasa, asana, and vyayama, they create a base for our advancement, right? So we've talked about all of them, but I want to emphasize this every week because it is so very important, right? So if people have been taking animal products, that is the first thing we have to get rid of, right? So in that animal products, we also include the dairy products because they have the same nutrition profile. So we have to get rid of the animal products, including milk. So in India, we have so many people who are so-called vegetarians, but they have diabetes, overweight, heart attack, stroke, and whatnot. It is huge number. The number of people who have diabetes and all of these diseases, they're such a huge number. So they're actually the so-called vegetarians. So we have to understand that milk is not a vegetable. It is extremely unhealthy for human beings. If you are a 2-month-old baby, then it is a different thing. Then that milk is actually required. Mother's milk is required. That is what babies require, is mother's milk. But once we get beyond that age of having mother's milk, then we should not be taking any milk. It's extremely unhealthy. It's just like eating meat, right? It has no fiber, it has no phytochemicals. So we actually talked about all of that. It's only protein and fat, just like any type of meat. It is an animal product, so it has no carbohydrates, no phytochemicals, no antioxidants, nothing. So the first step is to get rid of all the animal products, including milk. So if anybody is taking meat, then you got to get rid of that, right? We talked about that also. You should not have attachment to what we've been doing our whole life, right? People are used to things. We develop an attachment. We start loving everything that we do, right? We start loving the food. Like people love pizza, people love cheese, right? So we should remember that we should forget all those things that we loved and create new habits. Pizza is not healthy. It's not healthy. It has cheese, it has paneer, so it is actually poison for the human body, right? In the current lifestyle, those things are poison for the human body, so do not take it, right? Ghee, so whatever the form may be, you got to get rid of all those products. So your diet is not going to be worthy of a human existence, until you get rid of all these products. Absolutely all these products. And also sugar, oil, and salt, you got to get rid of these things, right? They are just the old life of sense satisfaction. So that's the only reason that people take the oil, sugar, and salt, is because they satisfy the senses. There is no other reason why they take. There is no nutritional need for those things. So the food is our fuel, right? If we are taking things for which we have no nutritional need, then what is the benefit, right? There is no benefit. It is essentially getting oneself bound in the chains of sense satisfaction, right? Sense pleasure, nothing else. So it is completely opposite of yoga nishta jivanam. So we should have proper food, which is fruits, vegetables, grains, and beans. Get rid of oil, dairy products, sugar, salt, all of those things, right? Or no oil, no sugar, no salt. Then no restaurant foods, no company products. Those companies, when we think about the company products, they do not have your welfare in mind. Every single product, their only goal is to make profit. So they will always cut corners, right? In order to make profit, they will cut corners. So anything that has a label, right, with a company name, do not buy that, right? You have to get rid of those things. So you have to focus on pure fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, as they grow in the field, right? whole food plant-based diet, that is a proper diet. The digestion will be proper, right? We should be able to empty our bowels when we get up in the morning, right? It should happen twice a day. So when you get up in the morning, it should happen automatically. You should not have to eat or drink anything, right? It should just come out. There should be no effort. One should have the feeling of full emptiness, right? Complete emptiness. So one should not feel that there is still something left in the stomach, right? So that should happen once, or it should happen 2 times minimum. And those who are sincerely following the yoga nishta jivanam, having the plant-based whole food diet, they will have 3 or 4 times the bowel movement, right? So that is there is nothing to be ashamed about it. It is part of the yogic life. It is part of human existence. So everybody should have an empty stomach in the morning. It should be effortless, right? So that is why we should be taking a lot of raw fruits and vegetables, which is the essence of our diet, right? When you take that kind of diet, then emptying bowel movement is automatic. There is no constipation. There is nothing, right? So one should have a lot of fruits and vegetables. Then the emptying the bowels will be very, very easy. For that, we need to have dietary changes, right? Because nobody is born with constipation. The only reason people get constipated is because of not having the right food. Otherwise, nobody has the gut which is that defective, right? Everybody's gut is fine. All you have to give it proper fuel and everything will become fine. So that is the first is food, and then asanas, right? So asanas, I've shared the asanas with some of you. You can start doing those asanas, and so all those people who are coming to the shivir in December will obviously be learning it in the shivir. And so that is asanas. We have to do twice a day, morning and evening. All the asanas that we talked about, not all the zillion asanas that are there in the market, but the ones that are essential for us to progress spiritually, for us to the asanas that will help us in doing sadhana, those kind of asanas. That is one thing. And then nirjala upavasa, we have to do minimum twice a month nirjala upavasa. Yesterday was amavasya. I actually did nirjala upavasa yesterday. I'll be breaking my fast today. So if you want, you can do 4 times a month, but or minimum is 2 times a month. Nirjala upavasa is very, very essential. You will just, when you start doing it for a couple of months, you'll just see so much of benefits you get, right? Your body becomes so active, right? It's like if you have been feeling tired and lazy and lack of energy, all that will completely go away. You will be feeling so refreshed after doing the regularly upavasa, right? So you'll be so energetic. You will be like you'll just be able to get to things and do them effectively, right? That is one of the key things that you see. And also your stomach will be really good. Your stomach will thank you, right? Because you've never cleaned your gut, because after doing the nirjala upavasa, you're also doing the full cleaning prakriya the next day, right? So we do the upavasa twice a month, ekadashi, right, or amavasya paurnima. So if you want to do 4 times, but minimum 2 times. And then after doing the upavasa, when you do the full cleaning prakriya the next day, which is absolutely essential, then anybody who does not have proper digestion and full cleaning twice a month, then it affects the vibration of your body, right? So doing sadhana is very, very difficult. It's not an easy thing. It's very difficult, right? So if you don't have proper environment in the body, then mind is also suffocated. It's a suffocation for the mind, right? It is a suffocation for the mind to be living in that kind of a body with constipation, right? So one should be able to empty the stomach and keep the stomach in a healthy condition, right? That is very, very important. So when we take a particular meal, right, whether we are able to empty our stomach, that is a very important thing. When people have heavy oily meals and the food doesn't get digested, it just sticks in the stomach, it just stays in the stomach, right? And then even they're not able to empty their stomach even after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Some people even after 5 days they're not able to empty stomach. It's very, very sad condition, right? So those are all indication of the diseases. Those are all indication of health problems, right? So the point over here is that we need to clean our stomach regularly, every day. In fact, every day, twice a day. So when we do the ekadashi, the fasting, and then the next day when we do the cleaning process, so you will be surprised to see how much of waste matter comes out of your body, which are actually stuck in your gut, right? So the cleaning process is very, very essential for maintaining, even like for a person who's not inclined spiritually, right? Even if a person is not inclined spiritually, but if you are doing this cleaning process, you will stay healthy, right? Somebody might come and say that, I'm not spiritually oriented, right? In fact, everybody is spiritually oriented, but they may not realize that they're spiritually oriented. They may say, oh, I'm not spiritually oriented, my mind is not in it. Even for those people, if you do these, having proper diet and having doing the upavasa and cleaning your stomach, then it is only going to give you good health, because nobody can say I don't want good health, right? Somebody can say I don't want spirituality, but nobody can say I don't want good health, because good health is the minimum. Because for your existence in this world, to do on your activities, you need good health, right? So for even for those people who are not spiritually inclined, the upavasa, proper food, asanas, they're all very, very, very essential, right? So when you do the upavasa and you clean your stomach, then you're taking your life one step closer to good health, right? So that is why doing nirjala upavasa is very, very important. So the next day after doing the upavasa, you clean your stomach with lemon water and salt, right? So when you do that, very quickly you will see that, all the waste matter coming out from your stomach, and the stomach becomes completely empty, clean. It becomes a clean slate, right? So that is very, very important. So no doubt it takes some time. In the beginning, it takes a couple of hours to 3 hours to do the cleaning process, but then as you get more experience, it shouldn't take that much of time. It becomes it's actually more quick, because you know how to do it. So it just becomes very, very quick. So then the fourth thing is vyayama, the exercise, right? Doing aerobic exercise every day is very, very essential. Everybody should do some form of exercise every day. So sadhanas, they are not exercise, right? In addition to the sadhanas, sadhana and asanas, in addition to the asanas, we should also be doing vyayama, right? Which is very, very essential. So I just wanted to talk about this, and I wanted to ask you guys, did you have, now it has been quite some time since we talked about the diet and asanas and upvasa and everything. So I wanted to ask if you guys have tried it out, if you have any experience that you want to share, uh, now that you've been following it for some time. Anything at all? Okay. So everybody, should live 100 years, right? There should be no chronic medications. So, uh, somebody may need medication just for 1 week, like if they have, one time something, somebody had a flu or something like that. That is a different thing. But we should not have any chronic diseases. Should not be taking medication for any chronic diseases, right? So if you're on medication for years together on something, then, whether it's blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, so those are all coming from the wrong lifestyle, right? Nothing is designed, our body is not designed to be like that, right? So, some people are, when they're old, they go to, the vrittashrama, and, they have dementia, they're not able to recognize anybody, right? Those are all the things that are coming from wrong lifestyle, right? Even at the age of 90, people should be going out for a stroll and having full memory, right? Full intellectual sharpness, right? That kind of lifestyle we should lead, right? Where even when you're 90 years old, you should be able to do everything that you are doing when you're at 50, right? So that is why this all these four things, the ahara, asanas, upavasa and vyayama, those four things are very, very essential. Whether you are on spiritual path or not, it is very, very essential. So having said that, I wanted to go back to our pravachan. What is dharma, right? So on the second half of the pravachan, we started uh, talking about that, any action we perform, we have these okay, let me actually share my screen. Okay. Can you actually see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, Dharma.
Oh, okay. So I also wanted to show this. We've already looked at it, but let's look at it one more time. So this thing we should always have it in our mind. This we said that, for doing any action, the jnanendriyas and the karmendriyas are used for doing any action. And we also said that uh, that behind the jnanendriya and karmendriya we have the mind. Without the mind being connected to that, to the jnanendriya and karmendriya, no action can be performed, right? And we said there are three components of the mind, which is antakaranam. The mind is called as antakaranam. There are three components: the mahat tattva, the feeling of I, or the knowledge of the self; the aham tattva, which is the doer I; and then chitta, which is the movie screen of the mind, right? The aham tattva is called as the doer I, which is the one which takes the lead and which does the actions, which gives instructions. And chitta is the done I, right? It takes the object of the external world. It just becomes like the object. It just becomes like the action, right? If we are seeing a book, it becomes like a book. If we are hearing something, it becomes the sound. So then what happens? The indriyas come in contact with the objects of the world. Let's say it's a book, or it can be anything, right? A book or a pen or whatever it is. So the tanmatras from the object get radiated from the object, and those tanmatras are received by the indriyas, right? And then from the indriyas, the chitta receives those tanmatras, and after receiving the tanmatras, the chitta takes the shape of that object, right? Takes the shape of the object. It's like a movie screen, and the aham tattva actually sees that object, right? It sees the object, it sees the book, or it hears the sound, or it tastes the rasa, right? So that is what the aham tattva does. We said that even though the aham tattva is the doer I and chitta is the done I, but behind this aham tattva there is this mahat tattva, which is the feeling of I, which is the knowledge of existence, right? It's the knowledge of the self. I am aware and I exist, right? So that is the mahat tattva. Without the mahat tattva, the aham tattva and chitta cannot function. So these three components, they are the components of mind. They're called as antakarana. We also said that behind this mind, right, when I say I exist, right, I have the feeling I exist, that behind that feeling there is this pure I, there is this jivatma, the unit consciousness, which is the pure I, which is the witnessing entity, which witnesses the mind. I know that I have a mind. That I, that pure I, is the jivatma. It witnesses everything that we are doing. It's a sakshi satta. It witnesses everything that we are doing. It doesn't do anything per se, but it just witnesses everything. And it is this I, which is taking all these functional forms. It is taking this functional form of mahat tattva, aham tattva, and the chitta, right? So I also said that just like a mother, a lady having different roles. She's a mother to her children, she's wife to her husband, and she's a lawyer in the court. She's having different roles, she's wearing different hats, right? But it's the same lady, right? In the same way, it is the same I, it's the same consciousness which is taking all these different forms. So mind is also it's a modified form of consciousness. So this pure consciousness, it is observing the mind. It is observing the mind, which is a modified form of the pure consciousness. So this is how the the sense perception or any action, this is how the action takes place, right? So we talked about that. Now we will actually move on from there and continue with the pravachan. So I'm going to again share the screen. Okay. So over here we talked about all that. Now we said that atma and consciousness, they're two separate entities, right? They're two separate entities, right? Because I know that I have a mind, I have that mind, that I, that pure I, that is the atma or the unit consciousness, and it is different from the mind. They are related, they are no doubt related, but they are different, right? So they're two separate entities. So that is what we talked about, right? So without the jivatma, the mahat tattva and the aham tattva, chitta, the mind cannot function. Without the atma, the mind cannot function. So the atma is very essential. Without the atma, the mind cannot function. So we we can go on further reading, but the witnessing entity and the pure I feeling appear to be different functional forms. From there we can read one time. Chandrasekhar Mohan, do you want to read?
But the witnessing entity and the pure I feeling appear to be different functional forms of the same I. In fact, the I that witnesses my existence also manifests itself as the I of I exist. The witnessing I is unit consciousness or Atman, and it manifests itself as Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva, and thus establishes its own existence. It is witnessing entity or unit consciousness which on taking up the function of the I of I exist is called Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva. Thus, unit consciousness is not only consciousness, it also has the quality with the help of which it manifests itself through different functions. This quality is not consciousness, as otherwise it would not be necessary for unit consciousness to manifest itself as Mahat Tattva and express itself as the I of I exist, which is different from the witnessing entity. Consciousness and its quality are therefore two separate entities. In Atman or unit consciousness, as this quality is different from consciousness, it must have been obtained from somewhere. There must be some other factor to qualify Atman to make it manifest itself as Mahat Tattva. That which gives this quality to Atman is called Prakriti. In other words, it is due to Prakriti qualifying Atman that it is manifested as Mahat Tattva and gets the feeling of I. So in this chapter, we're trying to, in this paragraph, we're just trying to identify and question, is there a difference between the witnessing I or the Jivatma or the unit consciousness and what we've been calling as Mahat Tattva, which is the I exist feeling, the one that has the feeling of I exist. And it goes on to say that the unit consciousness doesn't have any quality. It's just a witnessing entity, and it's nirguna entity. And just like the Brahman itself, who's a nirguna Brahman, the unit consciousness is a Jivatma, which is a nirguna Atman in each unit consciousness. The one that has, but it however manifests itself just like the universal consciousness manifests itself into the universe that we see. The Jivatma or the unit consciousness manifests itself into that feeling of I exist. Then one could ask why does it have to go through that manifesting process, and what is it that drives that? And that a new term is introduced called Prakriti. It's that Prakriti that gives the quality to the Nirguna unit consciousness to start feeling that I exist and gives that I feeling or manifests itself to the ego and the mind. So it's the Prakriti that's behind that manifestation. And to manifest the Jivatma into Mahat Tattva and Aham Tattva and the Chitta. That's what I gather from this
Yes,
paragraph.
Mahodaya. Yes, Mahodaya. Beautiful, nicely said. Thank you. Yes. So we have understood that the mind and Atman, they're two separate entities, right? The mind has three components: Chitta, Aham Tattva, and Mahat Tattva, right? And the Atma is the unit consciousness, and the mind is separate from it, right? Although they are separate entities, they are very well integrated, making it difficult to distinguish them, right? They're two separate entities, but they're very, very, very much integrated, right? The Mahatattva is the feeling of I exist, while Atma is the pure I, devoid of any feeling. Atma doesn't have any feeling. The Mahatattva is the feeling of I exist, or the knowledge of I exist. So whatever I am doing, I always have this feeling of I exist, right? This for feeling motivates Aham Tattva to engage with the external world, right? The work is done by the Aham Tattva through the Chitta, which is also part of the mind. So for instance, if I want to see a book, first I need to have the feeling of I, which becomes the witness for the Aham Tattva. The Aham Tattva, the doer I, then motivates the Chitta to interact with the external world and perceive the book. So in addition to the mind, there is this separate consciousness, the pure I, which witnesses the mind. This witnessing entity, or the Sakshi Satta, it doesn't do anything. It simply observes whatever the mind is doing. This unit consciousness gives rise to the feeling of existence, right? So the mind has three components, each with different functions. The statement I exist presupposes the presence of I, the pure I. When I say I exist, it indicates another I, the possessing entity, the Atman, or the witnessing entity, which possesses the mind. This witnessing entity's presence is established by the feeling of existence in every action that we perform, right? The assertion of I exist is distinct from Atman, Atma, as it presupposes the presence of unit consciousness. When I say I exist, that means there is unit consciousness behind. So the unit consciousness is very is similar to the ocean of consciousness, with which I was talking about, with the water in a cup representing the unit consciousness, which is part of a larger ocean. So without this consciousness, there would be no feeling of existence. Therefore it is said that without consciousness there can be no feeling of existence. Then what witnesses the existence of I? That is the pure consciousness. So if the pure consciousness, how does the pure consciousness, which actually does not have any qualities, how does it manifest itself into these different functional forms, the different functional forms of I, as the Aham Tattva, Mahat Tattva, and Chitta? How does it manifest? Is because of the Prakriti, because of the gunas of the Prakriti, that the Purusha, or the unit consciousness, it manifests into these functional forms, right? So now, so we need to understand what is Prakriti, right? We said the gunas does not belong to the Purusha. The qualities, the gunas, they do not belong to the Purusha. They are not, Purusha does not have any gunas. Then how does Purusha manifest into these functional forms? That means there must be another entity which is possessing those gunas, and because of the impact of those gunas on the Purusha, on the unit consciousness, that unit consciousness is manifesting itself into these different functional forms. So now we need to go ahead and understand what is that Prakriti, right? So Lata Bhagini, do you want to read? Pushpalata Bhagini, are you there? Are you on mute? Okay, Chandramouli Mohoday.
Prakriti needs an explanation. Prakriti is the entity which controls natural phenomena. Prakriti is neither nature nor quality. For instance, the quality of burning is said to be nature of fire. There must be something which gives the quality to fire, just as there is some entity which gives its quality to unit consciousness. That which qualifies unit consciousness is Prakriti and not the quality which is exhibited due to her influence. Prakriti is a Sanskrit word and derived pra plus kr plus tin, and it means to do something in a special way. Unit consciousness establishes its existence only by being qualified by Prakriti. In other words, Prakriti qualifies unit consciousness or Atman to give it the feeling of its existence. Energy is required to perform any action. As Prakriti performs the action of qualifying Atman or unit consciousness, she is a unique force. She is the principle which qualifies unit consciousness. It is Prakriti who, by her influence on unit consciousness, gives it the qualities of different functions. Prakriti is a unique force, a principle. But some questions which arise are, whose principle is she and where does she come from? So what I understood from this para is, in the previous one we understood that Prakriti is the one which influences the Atman to manifest into the three other tattvas, Aham, Mahatattva, Aham Tattva, and the Chitta. But then the question, because it's not, Atman is devoid of any qualities, and it is the Prakriti that gives this Atman the ability to manifest. So in this para, we're trying to understand Prakriti a little bit more. And Prakriti is, what I understood was, it's again, it's a force which influences unit consciousness to have the quality to manifest. But yeah, that's what I understood. And then again, the question arises. One of the examples that was given was, the ability of fire to burn. But then, where is it getting this quality from? So there must be some entity which gives the ability for fire to burn. So similarly, the unit consciousness gets the quality of manifestation from Prakriti. And now the question arises, whose principle is she? Because and where does she come from, right? So it must have arise again from something. So that is what we're going to explore further. But Prakriti, from this one, I understood that it is a force which influences the unit consciousness to or Atman to use the feeling of its existence. That's what I got it. But one thing I couldn't understand is neither nature nor quality. Prakriti is neither nature nor quality. If you could help me understand that, Mahoday, so that would be.
Yeah, very nicely said, Mahoday. Yes, we'll do that. Yeah, nicely said. So here, Prakriti and nature, in English we say nature, right?
Yeah.
Nature. So that those two are not the same thing, right? Prakriti, the translation of Prakriti into English is often said to be nature, but that is not correct, right? Nature is actually the style of working of Prakriti, but it's not Prakriti itself. The working of Prakriti, we call it as nature, but it is not Prakriti itself. What is Prakriti? We will be talking about in the further paragraphs. But Prakriti is a force, is an entity whose duty is to qualify, right? Prakriti has gunas, and those gunas qualify the Purusha, qualify the consciousness. So, for example, fire has certain qualities. So, it obtained these qualities because Prakriti qualified that entity, right? So, the word guna means tying something, binding it up. That guna means bandhana, right? So when we think of guna as quality, it is something that limits by putting it into certain arena, giving it specific characteristics that distinguishes it from Shuddha Purusha. So even existence is a limitation, right? When I say I exist, so there is a limitation, there is a bandhana, there is a bondage, right? Something is limiting us. All these limitations, characteristics and bindings are the attributes which are conferred by the force called prakriti, by the force known as prakriti. So here the point is that jivatma, or the shuddha I, is beyond existence. It is not limited by existence. Jivatma is beyond existence. It is not limited by existence. Existence has a beginning and an end. So the only thing that is ananta, without an end, without a beginning and end, is the shuddha purusha. The shuddha purusha, and jivatma is that shuddha purusha. The jivatma has no beginning and no end, and it does not come within the sphere of existence which has a beginning and end. The shuddha purusha only has a sense of existence. I get the feeling of existence when I get qualified by prakriti. So existence is actually a bondage. It is a limitation which is conferred upon the jivatma by prakriti, right? When it gets the sense of existence, then we call it as mahat tattva and not jivatma. Then when it gets further qualified, then we call it as the aham tattva. When it gets further qualified, we call it as chitta. How does those different functional forms arise? We will be talking about how does, from the jivatma, due to the influence of the prakriti, we get this feeling of existence, the mahat tattva, and from the mahat tattva, how do we get the aham tattva, and from there, how do we get the chitta? That will need to be explained in the following paragraphs, right? So prakriti is neither nature nor quality. So prakriti is not nature, as I just clarified. Prakriti is not nature. Prakriti is different from nature, right? Just because of prakriti, everything that is happening in the nature is because of prakriti. And prakriti is not quality. Prakriti is not guna. Prakriti gives those gunas, right? Prakriti gives those gunas, and the gunas are exhibited because of prakriti, right? She is the force. Like we said that the fire has this quality of burning, and who gives that quality of burning is that prakriti, right? So in the same way as the qualities are given to the unit consciousness, the qualities are given to the jivatma, and then jivatma takes those functional roles, right, because of the qualities of prakriti. So prakriti is different from nature. Is that clear, Mohdaya?
Mohdaya. Thank
Okay.
you. So what I understood was it's an entity in itself which is not nature. So I always understood nature. The Sanskrit word is prakriti, but okay, I get it now.
Yeah. So here prakriti, even though that's how we've been talking about saying prakriti is nature. No, prakriti is not nature. Over here, prakriti is much, much broader. So everything that is happening in the nature is because of prakriti, right? So fundamentally, there are only two concepts that we should always remember: is the purusha and prakriti and purusha. Purusha is the shuddha consciousness, is the pure consciousness. The nirguna purusha, the ocean of consciousness, and prakriti who has her gunas. And because of the influence of gunas on the purusha, that this whole srishti has come about, right? How this srishti has come about, we'll be talking about in the further pravachans. But the first thing that we need to understand is there are two fundamental concepts: purusha and prakriti. Purusha is the ocean of consciousness, and prakriti, due to her gunas, due to her trigunas, sattva guna, rajoguna and tamoguna. Prakriti has three gunas: sattva guna, rajoguna and tamoguna. Because of her gunas, the purusha gets qualified. Purusha gets influenced, impacted by the gunas, and he takes these functional forms. Okay. So moving on, Lata Bhagini, do you want to read?
Bhagini.
Please.
Namaskar. Prakriti is the principle of Purusha, and it is by its own principle that Purusha is influenced and qualified. As Prakriti is the principle of Purusha, she must exist within Purusha. In fact, she always does. Unit consciousness and its Prakriti can never be separated from each other. Just as the burning principle of fire, which cannot be separated from fire. Anything which acquires a characteristic quality due to the influence of a principle of force cannot exist if that principle or force is withdrawn from it. The two will always go together, and so do unit consciousness and its principle, the Prakriti. Unit consciousness and its Prakriti are inseparable, like the two sides of a sheet of paper. The only function of Prakriti is to continually create different forms by her influence over conscious. So now this paragraph gives the definition actually of Prakriti. Now the Prakriti is called as a principle of Purusha. That is a quality of Purusha, just like burning is a quality of a fire. So a fire cannot exist, as a fire cannot exist without the burning quality. The Purusha cannot exist without the Prakriti, which is the inner force, or which is called the principle. So this Prakriti and Purusha together work, and they influence the other things to do their part of work, like the influencing the I by the other one, Atman, the other one, and to influence the Mahatattva, the Atma Tattva, the Chitta, to perform their actions qualitatively and to lead us to seek the infinite properly. So now the only function of Prakriti is to continually create different forms, and by her influence over the consciousness, being inside the consciousness itself, inside the unit consciousness. So this paragraph tells the qualities of Prakriti actually influencing the Purusha. I think that is.
Okay, Bhagini, thank you, nicely said. Yeah, that is the idea over here. Just as we saw in the previous paragraph, Prakriti is the principle of Purusha. She is a unique force, a force of Purusha. Right? Prakriti has three gunas: Sattva guna, Rajo guna, and Tamo guna. These gunas influence or qualify the Purusha, making the Purusha, guna infused. Right? So the question arises: where does Prakriti exist? If she influences Purusha, it implies that the principle of Purusha, it implies that the principle of Purusha, she must exist within the Purusha. Right? She must exist within Purusha. Just like as the fire has a burning quality, the burning quality is within the fire. Same way, the Prakriti should be within Purusha. The Purusha and Prakriti are inseparable. They coexist together. Right? They're like two sides of a coin. Right? You cannot separate them. They are two sides of a sheet of paper. Right? They coexist together. Unit consciousness and Prakriti cannot be separated. They have an inseparable relationship. We call them in Sanskrit as avinabhava sambandha. Right? You cannot separate them. Similar to the shabda and artha in the mundane world. Right? When in the world we say that the shabdhartau sanyuktau, the shabda and artha are together. Right? You can't separate the sound and the meaning. Right? So you cannot have a shabda without artha. Similarly, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is Shiva and Prakriti is Shaktihi. Shaktihi sa Shivasya Shaktihi. Shaktihi is Shiva's Shakti. Shaktihi, Prakritihi is Purushasya Prakritihi. They cannot be separated together. Prakriti gives qualities to Purusha, allowing Purusha to manifest itself in different forms. In case of fire, there is a unique force that gives it the burning principle. Right? Similarly, for any entity to acquire its characteristic quality, a principle or force must influence it. If Prakriti were hypothetically withdrawn from Purusha, then Purusha would lose its gunas. So, however, since Purusha and Prakriti are inseparable, this withdrawal is impossible. Right? There is no withdrawal. Therefore, Purusha always possesses gunas as long as Prakriti is present, and Prakriti is always present. So Purusha is always possessing those gunas. So the primary function of Prakriti is to create different forms by influencing the consciousness. Right? As we the nana rupa, the different forms that we see in the world, right, they are due to the influence of prakriti on the purusha. As we have discussed earlier, due to the influence of prakriti's gunas, the shuddha I, the pure consciousness, manifests itself into different functional forms like mat tattva, aham tattva, and chitta. This transformation is driven by the gunas of prakriti. It just illustrates how prakriti influences and qualifies purusha to manifest into these various different forms. So it's crucial to understand these terminologies. Purusha, Atman, Shiva, they are all the same, right? If I say consciousness, uh, uh, consciousness, Purusha, Atma, Shiva, they're all same, right? They're all synonyms. Similarly, Prakriti, Shakti, they are all the same, right? Purusha and Prakriti both have no beginning and end, right? It's not like the Prakriti has a beginning and end. No, Prakriti also does not have a beginning and end. Purusha also does not have a beginning and end. They're two separate. They're actually not two separate entities, but one combined entity, right? Which we'll be talking about later on. They're known together as Brahma. Purusha and Prakriti combined entity is known as Brahma. Shiva Shaktiatmakam Brahma. Shiva Shaktiatmakam Brahma. Brahma is composed of Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti. Together they are infinitely associated and known as Brahma. Purusha at the cosmic level, has a counterpart at the unit level called as Jivatma, right? At the macro level we have the Purusha and Prakriti. At the micro level we have at the unit level we have the Jivatma, right? Prakriti, however, Prakriti does not have a unit counterpart. Purusha has a unit counterpart. The Atma has a unit counterpart, which is the Jivatma. The Prakriti does not have a unit counterpart. Prakriti is all pervasive and is present throughout, right? Unit consciousness is limited by its connection with the unit mind through Prakriti. This unit consciousness, having all the qualities of the cosmic consciousness, is not gunafied until it is qualified by the Prakriti. When it becomes gunafied, it is called as the mind, right? So the pure consciousness, when it is influenced by the Prakriti, then you get the mind. So every being in the universe, from a single-celled organism to complex animals like monkeys, cows, pigs, fish, every being has a mind and a Jivatma. No living being can be without a mind and a Jivatma. The mind can be in various stages of development, but every being has, even a single-celled organism has a mind and a Atma, a Jivatma. This Jivatma is required to witness the mind, right? If there is no Jivatma, then there is no mind. The unqualified Shuddha Purusha gets qualified by Prakriti, leading to the constitution of the mind. So the first stage of the mind formation, the Mahat Tattva, right? So these are different functional forms. The components of the mind, they are the functional forms of the same I through the association with Prakriti. So the initial form of Mahat Tattva brings the pure I feeling, pure I into existence, right? So due to the gunas of Prakriti, the Shuddha Purusha takes the functional form of Mahat Tattva, right? So okay, so we are actually I think we are okay. We can just take one small paragraph. So Chandrasekhar Modi, do you want to take it?
Okay. The unit consciousness is the witnessing entity and realizes its existence only when it is qualified to manifest as I of I exist. The principle of Prakriti, which establishes the existence of unit consciousness by qualifying Purusha, is called Sattva-guna, the sentient principle, the part of mind which is thus formed to give the feeling of I exist is called Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva. It will be more correct to say that under the influence of Sattva Guna, unit consciousness manifests itself as Mahat Tattva or Buddhi Tattva. So in this paragraph, going further into the interaction or the dependence of Prakriti and Purusha within that self, the unit consciousness, which is the witnessing entity, and the action of Prakriti establishes the existence of the unit consciousness. So basically, you don't recognize the unit consciousness until you recognize the Prakriti, which again, the effect of the Prakriti is the feeling of I exist. And that is called Sattva Guna, the sentient principle of trying to, where we were questioning what drives the manifestation, and it's the Sattva Guna that drives the manifestation of the unit consciousness or the Purusha into the Mahat Tattva and the Buddhi Tattva. And that process is facilitated by the Prakriti. And the Sattva Guna is called, another concept here introduced, as this sentient principle. That's the process of converting the unit consciousness into what we say the mind or the body-mind complex.
Yes, Mahodaya, that is the idea. So as we dwell into the principle of Prakriti, we are seeing that the Prakriti has three gunas: Sattva Guna, Raja Guna and Tamo Guna. The principle of Prakriti, that is the Sattva Guna, right? So as a qualifying force, it uses the three principles or gunas to qualify the unqualified unit consciousness, right? The Shuddha Purusha, Prakriti influences the Shuddha Purusha by her three gunas and thereby giving rise to the existence of I feeling, right? Prakriti and Sattva Guna are not the same. When the Prakriti influences the Purusha by using the Sattva Guna, the feeling of existence, the Mahat Tattva, comes into being. Prakriti utilizes Sattva Guna, a qualifying factor, to qualify the unqualified unit consciousness. So Prakriti is a force and it utilizes these three different gunas to qualify different things, right? Everything in this universe has these three gunas, right? So nothing is without the gunas. So when Prakriti uses her gunas, the first of the gunas, the Sattva Guna, it's also called as a sentient principle, as the Sattva Guna on the Prakriti, then the feeling of existence comes into picture, right? So the Sattva Guna is very, very subtle. It is very subtle. Compared to the other gunas, it is very, very subtle. And it uses that Sattva Guna to bring the unqualified consciousness into a state of existence and feeling. So Sattva Guna of Prakriti exerts its effect on Purusha, which up until now did not have any qualities or any limiting characteristics. So by the action of Sattva Guna, which is although very, very sukshma, which is very, very subtle, is a limiting factor. It means its duty is to limit something that previously did not have any limitations. So it is now conferring one type of limitation on that Purusha, giving it the quality of existence. The Purusha which did not have anything, it did not have any quality, it is now giving the quality of existence. The Sattva Guna of Prakriti gives the Purusha the quality of existence which he did not have before. So Purusha gets qualified, he gets gunafied by the Sattva Guna of Prakriti. When Purusha takes on that very quality, its manifestation is called as the Mahat Tattva, the feeling of I, right? That is how the Mahat Tattva comes into picture. That's how I get the I feeling. Purusha himself does not have the I feeling. When the Prakriti gives Purusha gunas, the Sattva guna, then I get the feeling of I, right? The Mahat Tattva. The mind, the first component of the mind comes into picture. Is that actually clear now? Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm assuming people are following along. So we can actually conclude the session over here if you have no questions further. अस्तु तर्हि धन्यवादः नमस्कारः
नमस्कारः धन्यवादः भगिनी
धन्यवादः महोदय
धन्यवादः नमस्कारः
धन्यवादः